Hi, welcome. We have about a minute left, and then I'll come back and we'll get started. Okay, welcome. It's 9 a.m. on another Mars Day. It is May the 16th, 2023. Yeah. This week is a big week astrologically. There's a lot of shifts taking place now. A lot of things are in movement or feel like they're in movement in a way that maybe didn't feel accessible. If you're not feeling that as the week moves on, that energy kind of picks up, not necessarily feeling like our energy is coming back quite yet, but we can feel the undercurrents of the shifts happening. We're going to go through all of the astrology here today for the week ahead. So thank you for being here. Again, this is May 16th, Mars Day. This is a Patreon only virtual space where we meet weekly to talk about the astrology of the week ahead. We do general check-ins with anybody that's here live. If you aren't here live and you're watching the replay, please always feel free to pop out and check into the comments. I love to hear what you're moving through. And you can ask your questions here or on literally any of the posts that I make. Pop into the comments, ask your questions. And yeah, we just pull some tarot at the end and generally hang out. Um, this week, I will start with the intention as always. But I also wanted to note that this week on Friday, I'm having a free workshop. It's very like intro to astrology. So if you're here, I don't know if you'll learn anything, but you might be able to grasp a little bit more about like how I use astrology and just like the basics of what got me into astrology. Um, but it's not like we're not going to be learning about like the planets specifically. I'll do a quick like basic overview of stuff, but it's not an in-depth workshop. But I'm offering that for free this Friday, and the reason I'm mentioning it here is that I've also invited the people that signed up for that workshop to join in and have access to the replay of the moon gathering that's also scheduled for this Friday the 19th. So I posted that yesterday in Patreon. So there's more information on that post that you can find. But I wanted to let you know that all of that was happening. If you do want the link to the workshop and you haven't received the emails for it, reach out and let me know. Like I said, there is stuff there that you'll probably learn about me, about my process, and maybe even about astrology or link some things for you. But yeah, so that's happening this week for me. All right, so that's out of the way. So now the overview for today will be general, like check in as I set the intention. I will pull up the card from last week. If you want to share anything that you moved through last week or that you're bringing into the space today, carrying over, feel free to do so. You can always also just have those awarenesses use this stuff to journal, not use it at all. But we'll look at that first, and then we'll go through the overview of the week, the big hits of the astrology stuff that's happening, and then I'll go through the day by day, and then we'll pull the tarot. So that being said, I'm going to take a couple minutes to breathe, set the intention of the space, allow room for anybody that wants to check in, either live or again, pop out and check into the comments if you're in the replay. And then we'll get into it. So give me just a few minutes. If you're here live and you want to chime in, feel free to come off mic or pop into the chat at any time. All right, so the card here from last week showing that we were moving through that Sun Uranus cazimi. And then on Sunday, officially the 14th, Mercury finally stationed direct. And this is one of the main things that people will be feeling at the beginning of the week. We're coming into a week where Mercury is finally going to start moving forward. But remember that today, it's still at that 5 degree of Taurus mark. So it's not moving. Mercury is still very slow in the sky. And so, but overall, like, it's a good thing that Mercury is no longer moving backwards. So as the week moves on, Mercury will go back over the part of the sky to retrace its steps, or to there may have been something that you've been pondering. And this week, as Mercury moves back over that part of the sky, you'll be able to have that conversation or do that thing, or relaunch that program, or whatever it is that Mercury themes that you've been moving through will start to flow a little bit easier, sign that contract, etc. And so that's a positive thing that we're moving into the week with, right? We have a lot of really exciting shifts that happen this week. I've been excited for this week for months, because there's just a lot of action. And normally I'm not somebody who likes a lot of shifting and changes, but these ones really feel like they offer empowerment and self-confidence and the ability to step into a new adventure in ways. And we're going to talk about why, but there's a lot happening astrologically this week. So I'm excited for it. And, also keeping in mind that there's a lot happening collectively. So when I talk about the energy of the week and the transits and ways to move through them, remember that it happens on a lot of different levels. There's things, the transits are hitting the collective in ways that won't necessarily exactly mirror what's happening in your experience, right? So for me, I'm really excited about a lot of this energy. And I'm also very aware of what it can cause in individual people's lives, and also for the collective. And so I don't, I don't focus on the mundane astrology stuff as much, because that's not the work that I do. I work one-on-one with people about their own kind of internal process. So I don't focus on that, but just wanting to preface the fact that some of the energy this week can also indicate things in the collective getting a little bit more tense as we move through the rest of this year, truly. And so that's a conversation that I'm not necessarily getting into with the astrology today. The astrology today is more a conversation about how we can use it in our own experience to deal with what's happening collectively and what's happening in relation with other people. So, okay. So, but yeah, generally super excited about the ways that we can utilize this energy this week. So Mercury is stationed direct over the weekend and is now moving forward. I have just been buzzing with this moon in Aries. This morning I was like up, awake. Normally I come into these spaces and I'm still kind of sleepy, and today I'm buzzing, I'm awake. I can feel the excitement in the cosmic energy of things shifting. Jupiter is at 29 degrees right now currently as I record this, preparing to move into Taurus, which happens exactly a little bit later today. I've been really excited for that shift with Jupiter into Taurus for a long time. My natal Jupiter is in Taurus, so I begin my house, full zodiac sign Jupiter return, this week today as Jupiter moves into Taurus. So I've been excited for that, but I'm also excited for it for the collective. I think it's good. It's a good planet shift. So Jupiter moves pretty slowly. Jupiter hasn't been in Taurus since 2011 and 2012. And so it's a good collective break, slow down, reminder to slow down. And I'm excited for that collectively because I am a slow processor. And that's kind of my jam. And so I'm excited for the collective planet, which Jupiter is, to kind of slow the collective pulse a bit. So I'm excited for that. But today it is at the 29th degree right now of Aries, and I can feel the buzz of that energy. The moon is also in Aries today, coming into a conjunction with Chiron in a couple hours. And that can Chiron is our wounds, so that can bring up any bit of wounding today. As the moon hits into a conjunction with Chiron monthly, right? It goes around the zodiac and has this kind of reminder of what those wounds are. So today is that day that the moon comes into contact with Chiron, and we're remembering some kind of wound collectively, but you may not feel that every time in your life, is what I'm getting to. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. So anyway, today I'm buzzing with the collective. This morning, Jupiter moves into Taurus later today. I'm really excited about it. But we also have a trine today that we're still feeling that was exact yesterday. It's the Mars trine to Neptune. And that's really creative and lovely. It can, depending on how it hits, it can make you feel sleepy, groggy, foggy. But it's a trine, so it can also bring us to deep spirituality work, creative work, allow us to flow in new ways, become spiritually embodied in different ways. There's a lot of ways to work with this spiritually and in our healing. And we're still feeling that today, even though it was exact yesterday. So that's the energy I'm coming in with today. Please feel free to let me know again how you're feeling. And when it is, if you're coming back to the replay, when it is that you're dropping in, because I'm recording it under this buzzing Aries moon, but I'll be interested just to feel the shift in the energy as Jupiter moves into Taurus, and then as the moon moves into Taurus tomorrow, and how that kind of shifts my energy, which often can reflect in ways what's happening astrologically and collectively. Hi. Thanks for being here. Okay, let's pull up the damn chart. How are y'all? Okay. So, I did want to do the overview of the week because I kind of rambled about some of the things that are happening, but I didn't go through the big hits yet. So it's a major week astrologically. If you can't tell, I'm excited about it. So we have Jupiter into Taurus today that we talked about. We also, that leads us into, as soon as we have Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius. So as soon as any planet moves into a sign, it's going to hit an aspect to Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius. And so as Jupiter moves into Taurus, it hits that square to Pluto in Aquarius, and that kind of intensifies things. That happens exactly tomorrow on the 17th. But we have, so Jupiter into Taurus, and then Jupiter squares Pluto. And then that leads us into the Taurus new moon that happens on Friday. And then on Saturday, the following day, Mars moves out of its fall of Cancer and into Leo, and it hits an opposition to Pluto. And then the following day, Sunday, we have the sun that moves into Gemini, and it hits a trine to Pluto. And then on the following Monday, we have Mars that is newly into Leo, hitting a square to Jupiter that's newly into Taurus. What this indicates in the sky is that we have a grand trine. I'm sorry. No, we don't. We have we have a T-square happening with Pluto, Jupiter, and Mars in the sky in fixed signs. So we've had a lot of fixed sign stuff happening over the last 2 or 3 years. And this is another indicator of that energy. It's a callback to some of the things that we've been moving through, and it's offering us a new perspective and a new path forward in a lot of different areas of life. And we're going to talk about it and break it down day by day. But a lot of shifts. We have Jupiter, Mars, and the sun all changing signs and aspecting Pluto. So Pluto is stationary. It's been at 0 degrees of Aquarius for all month, and it will stay here all month at 0 degrees of Aquarius. And so planets are just moving around Pluto at this point, making aspects to Pluto. And Pluto is the underworld. So it's bringing up all of this stuff that we've been dealing with or been trying to deal with, or secrets we've been trying to hide, or things we haven't wanted to look at, right? So Pluto is just churning that undersoil and bringing things up to the surface to, that decomposition that Pluto likes to do, right? It likes to transform things. But in order to do that, you have to look at it, right? And so the planets are just moving around Pluto, which is just pulling things up, right, from the underworld, and comes out in a lot of different ways. But that's happening. They're all in a T-square. T-squares are tense, they're frustrating, but in our personal lives, T-squares can be places where we do the most evolving. We can learn the most, and we can find mastery in those spaces because we have to learn how to navigate the energies. Otherwise, we're going to live in tension and frustration in our own experiences, right? Not talking about collectively. Collectively is a whole different thing. But what's happening for us this week with this T-square is it's showing us where we're frustrated, showing us where things aren't working, and we may need to shift somewhere. Again, this T-square is happening in fixed signs. So the fixed signs are fixed. They don't want to shift. They don't want to move. They don't want to change perspective. So there may be things that we're still holding on to consciously or subconsciously that need another look or another release, or whatever that looks like in your own experience. But those frustrations and those things may come back up today to be looked at in a new way. Not today, this week, to be looked at in a new way. But this T-square is going to play out for the next couple weeks. So we're feeling that energy. We've been feeling it bubbling. We have the exactions of it this week and into next week. And then, we'll deal with what comes up from that the following months, right? So we have a lot of planets shifting this week. Jupiter, Mars, and the sun all changing signs, meaning they're moving into different parts of your chart which indicate different parts of your life. And so there's changes, right? Like bubbling under the surface if you're not already feeling those. And then again, Mercury is moving direct this week. That's another big thing, but it's very slow. And then I had already mentioned that Taurus new moon and Taurus stellium. There's a lot of planets, a lot of things happening in the Taurus part of your chart this week. So just checking in with what those themes are, what your Taurus house is, and what you're seeing come up along those themes. And if you aren't quite sure, drop into the comments what your Taurus house is and some of the themes that are pinging, or if you have no idea, just say that as well, and we can start from there and go fresh. But take a look at the house themes. So I've posted like 3 or 4 different options to like housing theme charts. There's a lot that you can find within that, but if you still don't really understand how to navigate that, feel free to ask your questions anytime. Okay, so now we're really going to pull the screen up and show the chart. So this is the chart of the moment where we are right now. Tuesday, May 16th. It's 9:20 a.m. where I am, Eastern time, Eastern Daylight Time. So like I said, here's that moon in Aries that has me buzzing, coming into a conversation with Chiron. Jupiter still at 29 degrees of Aries, the anaretic degree. So we're really feeling Jupiter leaving that part of our house. Things may feel a bit urgent today, remembering that they're not. It just they might be, but generally with this energy, they're not, but it can indicate that it is. So check in with your system, your nervous system, etc. Anytime we have a planet at 29 degrees, it's important to just take a look at that. Here's that trine between, take a look at that being your nervous system. Here's that trine I mentioned between Neptune and Mars that's happening at 27 degrees of Cancer and Pisces. We actually talked about this last week because it was exact yesterday, but you can see they're still both at 27 degrees. So that conversation is still happening in orb, and we'll feel it the rest of the day as well. The other thing that I haven't noted quite yet that we are still feeling as well is Mercury at 5 degrees is still in a sextile to Saturn at 6 degrees of Pisces. This was exact last week, but because Mercury has been stationing at 5 degrees, it never really got out of orb of this sextile. So this Mercury-Saturn sextile has been active since last week, the end of the week. And we've been feeling that, and we'll continue to feel it. It's exact again tomorrow on Wednesday, the 17th, but we never really stopped feeling it. And I talked about that aspect more last week as well. Okay. All right. And then obviously here is the formation for that T-square that I talked about that's happening in fixed signs. So Mars throughout the week will continue to move, and it'll move into Leo, and it'll hit that exact opposition to Pluto. Jupiter today is going to move into Taurus. So then we'll have this T-square actually, but we'll see that get closer as the week goes on. But you can see that we're already feeling that energy kind of brewing. Okay. I will say it is an important week to pay attention to what's happening collectively. Obviously, take care of yourselves in the way that you need to. But you know, generally speaking, it's important to pay attention to what's happening collectively, to what's happening to us and to the people that we live on this planet with. So it's an important time this week, next week, to really pay attention to what comes up collectively. And again, that's because of everything having a conversation with Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius. Aquarius is the collective, right? It's large groups, it's humanity, And it's also power. And Pluto is power, and Pluto is obsession, and Pluto is shadows and violence and trauma. And so collectively, there's a lot that can happen when it's in an opposition to Mars, Mars being the warrior, the fighter, the aggressor in a lot of ways. Now, am I talking about the shadow sides of it? Yes, I am. Because we're seeing a lot of shadow energy happening collectively. And so I just want to call out what could happen. We do have Jupiter that's in this conversation, which could take it, two ways. Jupiter can make something feel even bigger than what it is. Jupiter can also bring relief and support to a situation. So a lot of ways that it can play out, but just noticing that this energy is here, and squares are tense. Squares are difficult, and oppositions are even more tense and difficult. And that's what's happening with Pluto and Mars. It happens every year, right? So keep in mind that this opposition, it happens every 2 years, this opposition between Mars and Pluto. So it's not super uncommon. It's happening a lot. It's just in the context of what else is happening right now in the world. I'm paying attention to the squares and the intensity of what's happening in the collective this week and next week and all summer. Okay, so contract. What were we talking about? We were talking about where we are right now today. So that's what we're feeling today as we come into the week. And then later today, move my stuff out of the way. Later today, we have Jupiter that's moving into Taurus. So it happens exactly at 1:20 p.m. Eastern time. So you'll just adjust your time zone accordingly. But 0 degrees of Taurus, Jupiter comes in. Again, it hasn't been there since 2011 or 2012. And also, so you'll look at your Taurus house and you'll say, okay, Jupiter's coming in, right? Jupiter's moving into my Taurus house. Jupiter can bring opportunities, ways to, expand in your life in a lot of different ways. I did have this book out earlier that I was reading about Jupiter, and I wanted to read a piece of it, and then I'll post it for you. But it's from the Archetypal Universe by Ren Butler. It's one of my favorite reference books for ways that planets work together. And this says about Jupiter that its principles are impulses towards growth and expansion, optimism and generosity, tolerance and acceptance of others, broadening experience, and integration into larger wholes. Tendencies towards inflation and excess, pride and arrogance, self-righteousness, and sense of entitlement. The Jupiter archetype manifests through our impulses to grow, reach out and expand our range of experience, to embrace wider perspectives, and to integrate ourselves into more inclusive wholes. Study, travel, and deep self-exploration are some of the satisfying ways to meet the needs and broaden our horizons. And then it goes on to talk about optimism and joy and well-being, having adequate resources. And having adequate resources is really important with Jupiter and Taurus, because Taurus is about our material senses, our material experience. And so there's a lot of ways for Jupiter to bring support, which is why Jupiter is referred to in Hellenistic traditional astrology as a benefic planet, because it benefits us generally to have Jupiter in conversation with anything that's happening. Jupiter is known to help support. But as we know, for our human experience, anything in excess can be harmful. And so that's always the shadow side. One of the shadow sides of Jupiter is too much, too big, too loud, too expansive. So, just keeping that in your mind as well. But this is about spirituality and our consciousness as well. Jupiter holding like the universal truths, the absolute consciousness. Before we had the modern planets, Jupiter was the ruler of Pisces. It's also the ruler of Sagittarius, so you can consider the themes that may overlap with Jupiter there as well. So that energy is coming into your Taurus house. So just considering this week as we have Jupiter moving in, and then we have this Taurus new moon, this is giving the Taurus area of your chart a lot of support and a lot of space for abundance. And it's not necessarily going to be like, oh, yay, my resources are raining down on me this week, because it's a new moon, right? And Jupiter is moving into Taurus where it will stay for the next year. So this is the beginning part, right? Like we're planting seeds this week, next week, in these beginning moments. And this Taurus new moon helps us move through that. The other thing about the Taurus new moon that is supportive is that we're no longer in eclipse season. So we're able to start that kind of like spell work, ritual work back up outside of the eclipses, which is helpful and supportive as we move through. I wouldn't necessarily do any kind of ritual on the day of the new moon. I would wait until probably the following week as the moon starts to get some light and it moves out of and it will move into Cancer. There's a lot of things happening over the weekend, but I would hold off on any kind of ritual and spell work until next week to work with this new moon. But what you can be doing is considering. You can be thinking about it, you can be journaling about it, you can, start implementing things. But you might be really low energy this week is the other reason that I'm saying that. As the week moves on and the moon gets darker, we may find ourselves feeling more tired, more lethargic, less high energy than we have at the beginning of this week. Okay, so I'll post the rest of this Jupiter stuff, but just wanted to kind of get you in the mindset of the Jupiter energy and the Jupiter archetype as you're considering it moving into your Taurus house, where again it will stay for the next year. A lot more to say about Jupiter, but we'll get into the next day, because on the next day is when Jupiter actually gets into this exact square with Pluto. And there's this intensification that happens. Jupiter being our beliefs and our thought systems, we can find this being difficult around like obsessive thoughts, right? That square is tension and frustration. Pluto rules obsession and Jupiter rules our beliefs. And so when we put them in a tense conversation, it can indicate that we struggle or may spiral a little bit that day if left unchecked. So again, if you struggle with that kind of thought processes, then just putting up support and some bumpers around it midweek could be supportive. But really, again, back to that nervous system work, which is why we do it so often, because it's really activated, right? Like we've had Uranus stuff happening the last few weeks. Mercury's been retrograde. That's all in Taurus. That's all nervous system work to like offset it. And then we have these squares happening in fixed signs. Taurus stellium happening. You can see all of this Taurus energy down here. Taurus is the body. It's our material experience, right? It's the first initiation into the physical realm. And so when it has so much energy happening, so many things going on in it, right? It buzzes. That's our nervous system. And so that's why nervous system work has continuously been my invitation the last few weeks. And it will be again this week as we have this square really amplifying now that energy. The new moon helps soothe it a little bit. The day before the new moon, we have some sextiles. We'll get into that. So that helps soothe it a little bit. But on this day, as we have this Jupiter square to Pluto, it can feel that way. This can also just bring us some really deep and gratifying healing, right? This can allow us to feel different, right? To notice that we're reacting differently. And that can be very supportive in this journey to feel a little bit of that. So everything has two sides, right? Like, and it can show up a lot of different ways, but just leaning into the support and relief that can come with Jupiter as it's in the conversation with Pluto. So, there's I've been talking about with Pluto stationing at the beginning of Aquarius for the last month or so, couple months. I've been talking about how this is going to have more people in the collective becoming more aware of things, right? And that's also maybe happening in your life somewhere. Maybe you're having a new awareness or some truth is coming to light for you. This can help us deal with it in a deeper way, this square between Pluto and Jupiter, because it allows us to have deep thoughts and have deep conversations and have deep awarenesses. This is growth, Jupiter, via shadow work, Pluto, right? So this is, a reckoning with our past, a reckoning with the work we've been doing. This is a step forward in our transformation, in our rebirth, in the repairing of our wounds. But it's also a reckoning with the wounds and the old debts of the collective, right? So seeing that played out as well. But where in your life can you use this energy to heal, to grow, to evolve? That's the invitation, right? Because there's a lot of energy that allows us to project and harm others under this energy as well. But the invitation is to work with it in ways that help us heal and evolve, right? That, at least in this space, that's my work, right? There's plenty of other ways that we're also initiating this energy and using this energy. Okay. So again, there's also this, Jupiter's moving into Taurus, which is our senses, our sensory experience, our resources, our ability to slowly and tenderly craft whatever it is that we're crafting, right? That we're doing, that we're making, that we're planting seeds for. And Pluto is stationing in Aquarius, Aquarius being the future, right? And so Jupiter moving into Taurus, having this conversation with Pluto in Aquarius can also really give us more insights and awareness around how our future can look if we take the time to tend to the seeds that we're planting now, right? There can be these new awarenesses that happen with this Jupiter square to Pluto this week. But this stays around for a while. So, just keeping that all in mind. And then following, okay, so there's some other like side notes on this day that can also kind of play to that need to put up your bumpers a little bit around any kind of like obsessive thought patterns. We have Sun conjunct, so the Sun now is at the 26th degree of Taurus, and at 26 degrees of Taurus is the fixed star Algol. I'm not going to go into that a lot here, but it can just indicate struggle in different ways, or being oppressed, or the awareness of being oppressed. And then the other thing that we have is Mars at 28 degrees of Cancer. We have talked about how Mars in Cancer is Mars in its fall. It struggles to do Martian things in typical Martian ways when it's in Cancer. And when it's at the 28th degree, it's at its lowest point of the fall, right? So 28 degrees of Cancer is Mars's most epic max fall. And so this can indicate struggle with emotions, lashing out, being abused. This is, again, not going to happen for everybody, but this energy is here. Sun conjunct Algol and Mars in max fall can really indicate struggles and people fighting for their life or feeling like they're fighting for their life and working from a place of fight or flight. So again, the invitation is to turn to the nervous system and to make sure that we're supporting ourselves when the collective is going a bit haywire. And that shows up and looks a lot of different ways. Mars in Max Fall specifically for Martian beings. So if you have Mars on the ascendant, if you are a Scorpio or an Aries rising, if you have a significant Mars placement, if Mars is your Lord of the year, I would really invite you on this day, which is Wednesday, to not do the extra physical thing, to pay more attention when you are slicing your carrots, to when you're doing Mars things on this day. Give yourself time, space, and attention, right? Because Mars is not well resourced at 28 degrees of Cancer. It's wanting to do one thing, the energy is wanting to do another. And so we just need to allow space. So when we're doing those Martian things, when we're exercising, when we're doing physical labor, when we're asserting ourselves, that we're taking extra care, around that energy. All right. So that is all on the 17th. The other thing that I didn't mention is that we see now that the moon is in Taurus. The moon is busy on this day. It moves into Taurus with a conversation with Jupiter, newly entered into Taurus. That's a beautiful little moment that happens in the morning. And then it comes and has a conversation with the North Node, and then it has a conversation with Mercury and Saturn. So the moon is busy on this day, which means our moods could shift a lot on Wednesday. We could have a lot of different stuff that we're juggling on Wednesday. But we can also get a lot of things done on Wednesday in the morning as well. So that is the 17th. Then we have the 18th. The 18th is Jupiter's day. It's Thursday. And this is the day that I mentioned we have some sextiles going on. So this is the exact sextile that we feel between Mercury and Saturn. Again, we've been feeling that energy since last week. And then we also have a sextile between the Sun, which is now at 27 degrees of Taurus, and a sextile to Neptune at 27 degrees of Pisces. So just checking to see if this stuff is connecting, what it's connecting in your chart. If you have late degree things, then we now have Mars, the Sun, and Neptune all in that last couple degrees of the signs. So they're having conversations with your planets and points that are at late degrees of the signs. So just looking to see how you can lean into some of this energy, right? So if you have late degree, so say you have something at 28 degrees of Taurus, it's going to be coming into a conjunction with the Sun, and also sextile Neptune on one side and sextile Mars on the other side, right? So there's a lot of support coming to that planet in your chart that's also in Taurus, that's also going to be conjunct the new moon that happens at the end of the week. And so there's a lot of support coming to that planet. So it's going to look different for each person's chart, but that's the way that you can kind of recognize. So we can see the placements that are happening in the sky right now, and then just recognizing, okay, well, what conversations are they having with my planets, right? Maybe you have maybe your Sun is at 6 degrees of Virgo, right? And Mercury is at 6 degrees of Taurus right now. It's stationed at 5 degrees. It's at 6 degrees having a conversation with Saturn. So that means that your Sun at 6 degrees of, did I say Sun? I don't know. Your Sun at 6 degrees of Virgo is in an opposition to Saturn, and it's in a trine to Mercury, right? So then you pull in the archetypes and the themes and you layer it on from there, but just trying to give different ideas for people that are still trying to learn how to see this with your chart. So let me know if that's helpful and what other questions that you have. But there's sextiles happening this day that can be supportive on Thursday. And the moon is now mid degrees of Taurus. Later in the evening, it'll reach Uranus, but otherwise it's hanging out here preparing for the new moon that happens on the following day. So on this day, the moon is in its dark balsamic moon phase. Low energy from the moon can be a time to like start turning in for our like hermit mode as we have the new moon happening on the following day. And here we are on that day, the 19th, Friday, Venus's day. And we have, so we can pull up the exact lunation. All right, so here's the exact lunation. It happens on the 19th, 11:53 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, so adjust for your time zone. But it's happening at 28 degrees of Taurus. This is the chart. We're going to go through it a little bit more, and then we have the moon gathering that happens that evening. So after the exaction, but that's okay because really for this moon, it's big chilling. Like it's giving, eat good food, smoke good weed, have a good beverage, have a good chat, sleep, watch a movie, like hang out, allow yourself to settle into this new reality, whatever your new reality is. And yeah. So there's a chart for Friday for the actual exaction of the new moon. More to come on that. But then by the following day, so let's go back to the mornings. By the following day on Saturday, you can see that the moon has moved into Gemini. It's done almost its full swipe through Gemini at this point because it moved in after that new moon. By later on Friday, it's into Gemini. And the sun is now at 29 degrees. But on this day, we have Mars at 29 degrees of Cancer about to move into Leo. And then it happens exactly, let me get there. It happens exactly at 11:38 a.m. Eastern time on Saturday, the 20th. Mars is into Leo, out of fall, and we all rejoice. No, probably not everybody, but I will rejoice because Mars is my Lord of the Year. And for me, this really indicates taking some next steps in the journey in my journey and my creative endeavors, and also a lot of other things. But Mars moving into a fire sign out of a water sign allows us to take all of that stuff that we've been moving through. Remember, like from last year, August of 2022, we had Mars that moved into Gemini. And then it stayed there for months, like 7 or 8 months. It was in Gemini, right? And then it fell into Cancer, where it struggles, right? So it's like coming out of this like long stay in Gemini, and it falls into Cancer. And then, now it's moving into Leo, and it gets to like pump its chest out and put its shoulders back and get in its stride a little bit more. And I'm excited for that to happen. For me personally, collectively, putting Mars into a fire sign with everything that's going on can act in a lot of different ways. So that's that. But personally, I find it as supportive for my confidence and empowering, and not only mine, but for a lot of people. Mars in Leo allows us to act from a place of truth, right? Of excitement for the light that I have, that I'm able to bring and shine, out into the world. So I'm excited for this shift. And as soon as it moves in, it's going to start getting closer to this exact opposition to Pluto, which does happen later on Saturday. So that opposition with Pluto happens, and this T-square starts to get a little bit thicker and a little bit more tense, again, allowing us to move through some things personally in our own lives, and also collectively, but can look very differently. And then on the following day, by this time, 11 a.m., the sun has already moved into Gemini. It moves in late, I guess early morning on Sunday. The sun moves into Gemini, and it hits a trine. to Pluto. So by mid-morning, it's already hit that trine. It's in this, it's the sun is at what we call the point of Thales, when it's sextile one planet on one side, and then it's trine a planet on the other side. And that makes the sun the release point for this tension and this opposition. So when the sun moves into Gemini, sun in Gemini is playful, it's bright, it's charismatic, it's magical, right? Like as far as like pulling in like the magician kind of energy with Mercury. And there's a lot of opportunity here for us to release some of the tension that maybe has been felt as the sun moves into Gemini. It hits a trine to Pluto, so it brings support to some of the stuff that Pluto has been bringing up and bringing out into the world. So I think by the time we get to Monday and the moon is into its home of Cancer, Mars is out of it, right? So Mars is out of Cancer. So the moon can just be with Venus in its home sign of Cancer. We have the sun in Gemini, where it does decently well. And it allows us some loft and some curiosity to what's been coming up, opposed to feeling like we're in the muck of it, in the thick of it. We find some distance and some curiosity to bring a little bit of support to some of the depth and the heaviness that we've been moving through. But again, I really like this because the sun is also sextiling Mars, bringing in that self-confidence, that empowerment, that ability to be in our body in a new way, is also available over the weekend on Sunday. And then we get into Monday. Again, the moon has now moved into Cancer. I love this transit with moon through Cancer for the first time in a couple months, where Mars isn't there, Venus is there. So they get to have this cute little conversation in watery and emotional Cancer that is not being driven by a Mars ready to be out of its fall. So I like this little pocket of Monday moon energy. And obviously it's also having this conversation with Saturn at 6 degrees of Pisces, which can bring us some support to that conversation as well. But on Monday, the main thing that we're feeling is Mars is now in the exact square to Jupiter. So this traveling square is still here. And Jupiter and Mars now having their exact square. And some of the same, but this can show up in us preaching at others. This can show up in us moving through some difficult physical shift. This can also be needing to embody or integrate some of the wisdom that we've acquired, needing to bring it into the body, Mars. So there can be a lot of ways that this shows up, but this square, remember, it's been here. So we've been feeling this, and this just allows us to come into a friction point, a tension point, to recognize where we can shift or where we can move to make something more sustainable or more supportive and healing. Yeah. Okay. So that's what we end on, friends. Was that so much? Jupiter, honey, had a lot to say. Jupiter is the teacher after all. So hopefully there were nuggets of wisdom sprinkled throughout. There's a lot of shifts happening today. There's a lot of stuff. Not today, this week. We have a lot of movement. So take it a little bit of a time, right? If this was all too much, just think about like, all right, well, what planet are you interested in, right? What's your Lord of the year? What are they doing this week? What's your ascendant, right? So if you're a Scorpio ascendant, that means that Mars is the ruler of your ascendant, which is like one of the rulers of your chart. So you can say, okay, well, Mars is moving out of Cancer, out of the Cancer part of my house and into Leo, right? So what themes, what movement, what shifts, what have you been feeling as Mars has been in Cancer? That's another way to look at it, right? To do the retrospect if that's something that works for you. If you're someone that likes to like think into the future and lean into things in a specific way, then consider what Mars can do for your Leo house, right? Maybe you pull some tarot and pull that in. Speaking of tarot, let's move on. Let's move on to the next part of today's show. All right, I'm going to pause. That was a lot. I'm going to pause and prep for a card pull. I think we're going to do an oracle today. I'll be back. Chime in if you have anything to say here live, or pop out and share in the comments if you're watching the replay. I'll be back. Okay, we are going to pull from the Fifth Spirit Tarot deck. We're pulling a card of guidance and support for the week ahead, May 16th through the 22nd. This card is specifically for the folks that are watching live and on the replay in my Patreon. Part of guidance and support for the week ahead. We get the Knight of Swords. Taking time just to notice what comes up for you organically and intuitively with this card. You can feel free to journal about it. Use it in whatever way feels accessible and organic for you. I'll post a picture of it with a little write-up of what came up for me that does not have to match what comes up for you, or anything else that we talked about today. Allow your intuition to bring you what's relevant for you. Okay. So obviously I changed my mind about the oracle, but this felt more aligned. Okay. Knight of Swords. Thanks so much for being here. I appreciate you. We'll chat soon. Have a week.